With the win over Florida, the Longhorns began to look like themselves on the gridiron once again. The Duke Blue Devils got upset in the Champions Classic last night, and Bryce Young is 2-0 starting in the couple last games, but now he faces the Mahomes and the mighty Kansas City Chiefs. Stay tuned because we're talking all this and so much more on the one and only College Crossfire.
All right, I'm going with classic, the 9-9-9. I'm going to do the 9 hot dogs, 9 beers, 9 innings challenge.
Need I say more? Need I say more? Need I say more at all?
From Costco specifically, I'm going to take 2 double chunk chocolate cookies, ice cream sandwich, but it's fried.
It's about to get hot in here, folks.
It's about to get hot. Good evening to all our viewers tonight. I'm your host, Robert Gonsolin, and we've got a great show in store for you. In our second week in November so far, we've got all the sports to talk about tonight. We've got basketball, we've got football, we've got college, hoops, and the NBA. But before we get going, I want to share that today's show is brought to you by Cap Metro, Austin's transit system. We connect you to work, school, play, and everywhere in between. So plan your ride to this weekend's watch party at capmetro.org. All right, let's get into it. Now into week 10 of the year, we're ready to introduce tonight's contestants. So without further ado, let's start things off. Beginning in our first seat, we have a man who's already been a champion on the show this year. The man who is always happy to talk about any sport that you may bring up. It's our very own Ikey Kohler. Ikey, how's it going tonight?
Hey, I'm pretty good. Thanks for the intro. I was just watching the new introduction to College Crossfire that y'all got to see it. And y'all did a good job making it. The producers back there, so props to them. But happy to be on. So, yeah.
It was indeed a very cool introduction, and we're happy to have you back on. In the middle seat, we have a man making his second appearance on College Crossfire tonight. He's a Pittsburgh sports fan, so we'll have to ask him about the quarterback situation in Mike Tomlin's QB room. It's Colin Flickinger. Colin, how's it going?
Doing good. To answer that question about Mike Tomlin's QB room, Russell Wilson is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL right now, and that's all I have to say.
Well, he sure is playing with the aura of that. And rounding it out in our third seat, we have our very own associate producer of this TV show coming all the way back from the control room. And he's got the ESPN College Game Day hard hat and Home Depot gloves on. It's Grabiel Silva.
Yeah. Thanks, Robert. I'm happy to be here. The last time I won on this show, I was wearing a ridiculous orange hat, so we're looking to turn the tide again today. Looking to turn the tides. I like hearing things like that. It makes this show so much more interesting when y'all kind of come in with a sense of purpose or mission on the show. So, with that being said, hopefully I'm right. Hopefully it's more fun. But before we jump into it, we need to review tonight's rules on this show. In case you've never tuned in before, there will be 3 rounds with each one containing 3 questions. I'm going to dish out points to whoever I believe has the best answer in order of 3 points, 2 points, and 1. Whoever has the most points at the end of the 3rd round will get to come back on next week's show as the returning champion. But we can't forget that this 3rd and final round, the most crucial one, is also known as the rapid fire round. Double the points, meaning the best answer will receive 6 points, 4 points, and 2 points. In this round, the contestants have not been able to see or prepare for these questions whatsoever, so they'll have to think on their feet and come up with their idea of what the best possible answer is. In the event that there's a tie by the end of the 3rd round, there will be a bonus question to see who is crowned champion. Now that we've reviewed the rules, let's get right into it. College Crossfire right here. On Saturday, Texas football defeated the University of Florida handedly, scoring 49 points in a game where starting quarterback Quinn Ewers didn't even finish the 3rd quarter.
In the 3 games prior, there was some speculation whether Ewers had lost his touch because he hadn't been playing the same way after his injury. Is Ewers back to his natural form heading into Arkansas, or is Florida just too easy of an opponent for him to struggle against? Ikey, start this one off.
So, yeah, I don't think it's fair to say that Florida is too easy of an opponent for him to play against. I mean, they almost beat Tennessee. They almost beat Georgia. But, I mean, as far as Quinn Ewers being back to form, at least how it was in the beginning of the regular season, he definitely is. I mean, he threw 5 touchdown passes, 4 in the first half. But the main thing for me is that he connected on the deep ball more often than not in that game. And he had struggled with that a little bit in the previous games, especially against Georgia. But in the Florida game, he was on point. He didn't look rushed or frazzled in the pocket. And he's the only QB. He's one of only 2 QBs to throw 4 touchdown passes against Florida in the last 20 years in the same game, the other being Mac Jones from Alabama. But I think maybe it's not right to say that he's back to form, but maybe his confidence is back to where it was at the beginning of the season, because half of it's a mental game. So, I mean, you were talking about us being on a mission earlier. Quinn Ewers is on a mission to go get that natty. So I think he's doing a good job right now.
It's interesting you brought up the deep ball a little bit more, because that is something we have been seeing more from him so far in that last game. 2 years ago, a year ago, we did see a lot of that, but kind of as he's returned, we've seen a lot of checkdowns and screen passes. Colin?
Yeah, I think a lot of the same what he said. He was really connecting on the deep ball. He looked a lot better than he did for a lot of the season, but I really want to highlight his pocket presence. He was only sacked 1 time this game. That's a lot better than anything we saw the last few weeks from him. He didn't really look rushed under pressure. He handled it well. He stepped up when he needed to. He also just passed the eye test. He looked really good on everything he was doing. He was putting the ball where it needed to be. And he had a 90.1 QBR. All around his game was solid. I don't know if he's, like you said, I don't know if he's back to where he was always, but I think he's getting close, and he's really working to get good end of season form to where he needs to be to make a national championship run.
His composure in the pocket was definitely there. We saw him kind of struggle with that against Vanderbilt and definitely against Georgia. But, coming back home against all odds, he kind of stayed and held his composure. Grabiel?
Well, I'm going to say that it's not really a good thing to say that Florida was a weak opponent. I mean, they just a couple weeks ago, they went toe-to-toe with Georgia. And, I mean, Georgia's one of the top teams in the nation. The bye week really helped Quinn. He looked a lot more smooth, a lot more comfortable in the pocket. That's exactly what you wanted coming out of the bye week. You didn't want the same struggles that you saw against Vanderbilt, against Georgia, and even against OU. You didn't want to see that again. And coming off the bye week, he looked really, really amazing. I don't know what technically is back for Quinn Ewers. What is his back game? If that's not his back game, then I don't know what is. He threw for over 300 yards, had 5 touchdowns. It was against Florida, but if he continues it this week in Fayetteville and the following week against Kentucky, it's going to look real interesting in College Station. And, I mean, he just looked really, really good this past weekend, and it's just going to be whether he can continue it or not.
One thing I want to mention is, had Quinn connected on one more touchdown throw for a touchdown, he ties the single game record for most touchdowns thrown by a Texas quarterback in a game. DeAndre Moore dropped that one pass. He catches it. Yes, catches it, but they ran it with Jalen Blue that one drive. If he catches it, he has 6. So it's interesting how they brought him out early just to kind of keep him healthy. But great answers all around. I have to give Ikey the 3 on that one. I like how you talked about, this was his game where he connected with all his receivers the best they could. Colin, I like how you talked about composure a lot. And then Grabiel, they kind of just went there. You finished it out right there with what Ikey and Colin had to say. Great answers all around, though. 3, 2, 1, straight off the board. Yesterday evening, the College Football Playoff Committee released their second ever rankings and seedings for the 12-team playoff. This is, of course, how things will stand if the season ended right now. So realistically, things are set to change as there are still so many games to be played. So I'm going to ask y'all, give me your College Football Playoff seeding predictions for teams 1 through 4 and tell me why. Colin, start us off with this one.
All right, so in the one spot, I'm going to go with Oregon. Their only real challenge for the rest of the season is going to be whoever they play in the Big Ten title game. They beat Ohio State earlier in this year, and the Ohio State team now is not the same that it was. Their offensive line's a lot more banged up. They've been having a lot more problems recently. Number 2, I'm going to go Texas. I think that Texas probably ends up playing Tennessee in the SEC championship game, and I think Texas beats them, I don't know, 10, 15, some points in that range. I don't think it's going to be a particularly hard game, but I don't think it's going to be enough to get them ahead of Oregon. 3, I'm going to go with BYU. They've looked really good this season, bar their last game against Utah, which, I mean, they still won, and as the saying goes, great teams win even in their worst games. So I think that they're going to be able to win out for the rest of the season. I think that's going to put them in the 3 spot. The number 4 spot, I'm actually going to go with Boise State. I don't think that Miami ends up winning the ACC championship game, and I don't think that SMU beating Miami in the ACC championship game is going to be enough to put them over Boise State, who's currently ranked ahead of them. I think Boise State wins out pretty convincingly, and I think that the committee ends up putting them in the 4th spot.
Boise State, interesting pick. You know, with Miami's loss, they're in a really tough situation, and SMU has a real chance to take the conference from them. If they did that, that would really shake up the rankings, and we'd have a group of 5 team potentially playing for that bye. Grabiel?
Well, there's only so many possibilities you can have with a question like this. Number 1 is going to be Oregon. They're playing, teams with barely even a pulse to finish the regular season. And then they're going to play Ohio State, and Ryan Day can't play against good teams. So that's an easy win for Oregon to win the Big Ten. They'd be undefeated. The consensus, number 1. Number 2, I'm going to say Texas as well. The SEC's already eaten itself alive. And if Texas just wins out, and gets to the SEC championship game, they'll be in. And I believe that whoever they face in that title game is going to see a Texas team that wants to win. That's been Sark's goal all year long, which is to win the SEC title game. So I think Texas is going to get that 2 seed as a 1-loss SEC champ. The 3 seed, I'm going to go with BYU. Nobody in the Big 12 is really like a threat other than Colorado, but they have 2 losses, I believe. Iowa State already lost their 2nd game, so I'm going to go with BYU. They have all the momentum. They escaped their trap game last week against Utah. So I'm going to go with the Cougars there at 3. Number 4, I'm going to go with SMU. Contrary to what Colin just said, I don't see them putting an actual group of 5 team in the top 4. So I'm going to go with SMU to beat Miami. Miami's skidded by too much, and I'm going to go with SMU to round out the top 4.
SMU, another ACC team that people weren't really predicting them to make it do as well as they've done so far in their first season in a Power 4 conference. So very interesting. Ikey?
Yes, for my number 1 seed, I'm also going to go Texas as an SEC champion. There's like 7 or 8 teams that can make the championship right now, but Texas has one of the clearest paths. I think they'll win, so they're number 1. Or no, they're number 2. Sorry, Oregon's number 1. I got ahead of myself for a little bit. Oregon wins the Big Ten. They're number 1. Texas is number 2, the champion out of the SEC. And then for the 3 seed, I'm going to go SMU. I think they win the ACC and they beat Miami. And they're the 3 seed because I think a team that has the star power and the skill players to beat BYU is Colorado in the Big 12 championship game. I think Colorado could get it done. So if Colorado wins the Big 12, that would bump SMU up to 3. But the first 2 seeds are Oregon number 1, Texas number 2, and then you have you'd have SMU 3 and then Colorado 4th.
So interesting choices by all y'all. None of y'all have Miami going and winning out the ACC. That Georgia Tech loss is pretty convincing for y'all, huh?
It's also just
I'd say so.
Performance. What you have to remember is, anything can happen. Cam Ward, still a phenomenal player, and, great players turn it around at the end of the season. But anything can happen. I have to agree most with Colin right here. I think that if Miami were to not make it, Boise State will be ranked higher than SMU, and we would have the scenario where the group of 5 champion will be ranked higher than the ACC champion. Colin, you'll get the 3 on this one. I do think that Grabiel, you're going to get the 2 because I think that SMU, if they are ranked in the top 4, they will be that 4th seed. I just don't think that they're going to be the 3 seed, and I think Kansas State has a better chance than winning the Big 12 than Colorado. But BYU has the best chance of all of them. So Colin 3, Grabiel the 2, Ikey the 1. Great answers all around. The annual Champions Classic in men's college basketball took place last night with Duke, Kansas, Kentucky, and Michigan State all squaring off in Atlanta, Georgia. What are your biggest takeaways from the two games? And is Kentucky really that good, or did Duke just hand to them at the end? Grabiel, start this one off for us.
Well, in the first game of the night, Kansas really looked like the #1 team in the nation. They handled it. They took care of Michigan State in the first game, and the game before for Kansas, they also took care of a top 10 team in UNC. In the Kentucky and Duke game, it was pretty surprising to me. Duke had control for most of the game. Cooper Flagg was going, he was doing #1 overall pick things, but in the end of the game, he just kind of flustered, and if that's a sign of things to come, it's not going to be a good season. No, it's not going to be a long season for the Duke Blue Devils if Cooper Flagg continues to struggle like that at the games. If he improves, it'll be interesting to see. But Kentucky really proved that they are the real deal. It took a lot of grit from a first-year head coach in Mark Pope coming back in a neutral site, but it was in Atlanta, so it's really right there next to Duke. Coming back from a 10-point deficit, rallying the team back, and getting a tough win there in the Champions Classic.
So when you say it's not going to be a long season for Duke, do you mean it's not going to be like a dreadful season for them, or it's not going to be like a long season in the sense where they're going to be going late in March?
If Cooper Flagg struggles like that at the end of the games, they're not going to have a long season into March.
Gotcha. Ikey?
Yeah, so first thing I'll say about what I took from both these games combined is that basketball is back, college basketball is back, and it was just thrilling to watch like two separate games come down to the wire, and it's going to be like that all season. But as far as the Kentucky and Duke game, I wouldn't put it all on Flagg for Duke. I mean, he's projected #1 pick. I mean, but he's also a freshman. He's young. Okay, that's going to happen with young players. But as far as Kentucky goes, I mean, Coach Pope brought in 8 new players over 21, a couple from big Power 5 conferences. And, I mean, they were down 10.5. They were down 9 late in the game. And what stood out to me about that team was when their back's against the wall, the thing that's going to win them games is collective experience and being able to rely on each other and trusting each other. Like that experience on the court for Kentucky is what stood out to me most, and that's what won them that game.
Indeed, Flagg, a young freshman, he's got a lot of time to develop. In Kentucky, they also proved some promise in that game. Colin?
Yeah, I actually have a different takeaway from the Kentucky-Kansas game, and that is that Kentucky may not be as good as these two are saying they are. They were down 9 pretty late into the game, and the only reason they were able to come back is because of how cold Duke got shooting. They shot, 17% from 3 throughout the game. That's just unacceptable for especially a program as big as Duke is. But you cannot expect that for big programs. Kentucky's offense also had 10 turnovers. They're not that efficient. And then for the Kansas-Michigan State game, I mean, Kansas is as good as we thought it was. Hunter Dickinson still as dirty as we thought he was. And Michigan State still can't shoot threes like any other year for the past 5. So, yeah.
Interesting that you bring up defense right there because, Duke ranked much higher than Kentucky, and they had a kind of a steady lead on them. If they can just maintain their rhythm throughout the rest of the game, they don't need to worry about Flagg committing 2 turnovers at the end right there. I like how you put it in that perspective. You'll get the 3 on that one. Grabiel, I like how you talked about, Flagg is a young freshman. He's a freshman. Duke's a young team right now, and, he needs to kind of pick it up in order for them to have a longer season. So if they just work on that, don't commit those mistakes, this season, they can go as long as they want to play, as long as they can kind of clean up the mistakes that they made last night. We'll get the 2 on that. Ikey, the 1. Great answers all around. That's going to mark the end of our first round. We've gone over college sports from hoops to on the gridiron. Don't go anywhere because we're talking professional sports when we return in just a sec. Welcome back into College Crossfire. We've got a really close first round that we've just completed right now. Colin, you, my friend, are leading with 8 points. Ikey and Grabiel are right behind you, each with 5. So, as it is at the end of every first round, it is still anyone's game as we shift over our subjects into a new realm of sports, my professional sports block. Starting things off, it's going to be interesting to see how the college football world Okay. Shifting gears, it's going to be interesting how Texas will respond after a excuse me as we go through some technical difficulties right here.
It's the wrong question.
Some ad-libbing question. Just keep
It's getting hot.
It's getting hot in here.
Lights are a little too bright.
There you go.
Here we are. After the Carolina Panthers starting quarterback Andy Dalton suffered a thumb injury in a car accident a couple weeks ago, the original starter Bryce Young returned and has since led the team to 2 straight wins. The teams they beat, the Saints and the Giants, are 2 of the worst in the NFL, but I must ask you, are the Panthers now seeing realistic improvement with Bryce Young? Grabiel? Tell me.
No, they're not. He's only thrown for 171. He threw for 171 yards, I believe, against the Saints, and 150 against the Giants. I don't know if I have those mixed up, but that's not improvement at all. Those are against the 2 worst teams in the league. I mean, he won a game in overtime in Germany. Like that's nothing notable. They're not seeing much from him. Andy Dalton's hurt, so it's not like Andy Dalton can be in his place right now. I mean, those are the 2 worst teams that he played against. The Giants are down there with the Panthers, and the Saints haven't won a game since they paraded outside of AT&T Stadium after beating the Cowboys. So that's all I got to say, really. That I don't think they're gonna. They're really improving there.
Yeah, indeed. They've played the 2 worst teams in the league. It's gonna be interesting, kind of switching off and you're going to the best team in the league. What's gonna happen, Colin?
I'm going to say the opposite. I mean, it's improvement. It's not, he's not looking like a Pro Bowl level player, but it's improvement because of how bad he was to start the season. Anywhere from where he started is improvement. Yeah, he played against 2 of the worst teams in the NFL, but you also have to remember his wide receivers, his offensive line, everything else that he's playing with are replacement level players if you're thinking of it in basketball or baseball terms. I mean, he won 2 games, yeah, against 2 pretty bad teams, but with a bad team that he had himself. His blocking is still terrible, but he looks better in the pocket. He's hitting the passes that he really needs to win these games. He's also just not turning the ball over either. He's turning it over at significantly worse or better rate than he was to start the season. I think that's improvement. It's not the greatest in the world, but it's better than it was.
So you think they're better off sticking with him versus when Andy Dalton comes back healthy?
Yes.
Gotcha. Ikey?
Look, so in the NFL, success is defined by winning. So if you have a rookie quarterback who had been benched because he was losing and now he's winning 2 games, I think it's because he's playing better now. He's showing improvement. I mean, that overtime win against the Giants, taking it down to the wire, learning how to win is a skill, and especially learning how to win in the NFL is a skill. I mean, if this were Caleb Williams, like Caleb Williams threw like only 1 touchdown, if that, in his first 4 games. Like each game is a Chicago Bear, but he was winning, and he was hailed as the next savior of the Chicago Bears. And so, by that standard, based off of winning, Bryce Young is improving, and it improves his confidence more than anything, and the team's confidence in him.
The more you win, the more you kind of rally behind your starting quarterback, the better that they will probably play. I like how you said confidence is key with the Carolina Panthers right now. Grabiel, I have to agree with you the most here. They have played the 2 worst teams. They might have some improvement, but right now, I think Bryce Young was kind of dealt some easy cards, and now he's turning around to play the Titans of the league right now. Colin, I like what you said too about Bryce Young showing signs of improvement. I do think he is the better guy than Andy Dalton right now. So you'll get the 2 on that one. Ikey, the 1. Great answers all around. Sticking with the NFL here, on Monday Night Football, the Detroit Lions proceed to score 19 unanswered points in a come-from-behind win against the Houston Texans. Even in a game where Jared Goff threw 5 interceptions, Houston failed to score even once in the second half. Pretty dreadful if you're a Houston fan. Now having lost their last 2 games against worse opponents, what is going on with the team and why are they struggling to pull out the win? Colin?
So first, I'm going to disagree with the question. I do not think that the Lions are a worse opponent. They are the #1 team in the NFC. They are currently leading the best division in football, and they were the NFC champions 1 quarter away from the Super Bowl last year. That said, the reason why the current Texan team is losing is because of how banged up their offense is. Dameon Pierce, Nico Collins, and Stephon Diggs are all out. Not to mention Tank Dell only had 1 day of practice before this game. He only had limited reps as well on that Friday. The only reason why they're not winning more than they are right now is because they have no one to throw to. Their #1 receiver this past Sunday, or whenever they played their game, was John Mechie III. I didn't know who that was before I Googled the stats for this game.
John Bama guy, man.
Star Bama.
Who?
Leukemia survivor.
Okay, now I feel bad.
Ikey?
Yeah, I mean, if the Texans, this is what happens when a young team wins a bunch of games in a row. They start to get comfortable, and they get up on these teams. Houston hasn't scored a touchdown in the second half in 5 of their last 6 games, and I know some of their players are hurt, but I've lost the ability to close out games in these last 2 games specifically. But so I think that's going to have to change for them to be a real Super Bowl contender like they were really made out to be earlier on in the year. So, yeah.
Grabiel, what do you have to say about the Texans?
I'm going to say that C.J. Stroud is going through a sophomore slump. It was not going to be like he had great numbers last year. It was going to be real hard for him to replicate that this upcoming season, and it's showing it's rearing its ugly head when he has no healthy receivers, as Colin mentioned. Diggs is out. Tank Dell was injured. He has nobody really to throw to. Will Anderson was hurt on the defense as well. They're fighting with a lot of injuries. You know, this Texans team's not 100% healthy. Do I see them making a run in the postseason? Yes, but right now they're not healthy. They need to get healthy. But like they're having trouble closing out games, and it's just not a formula for them to keep on winning. They're lucky they're in one of the worst divisions in the league, the AFC South, where every team is under 500. They basically have a 3-game lead over that division. They're gonna win it. They're gonna be in, but right now there are some struggles. But once the Texans are healthy, I think they're gonna have a chance to make some noise.
Like you said right there, I think the common theme amongst all y'all was injuries. But Ikey, I do have to agree most with what you were saying right there. You know, injuries are a huge problem, but then again, you know, you got to be able to find your receivers when they kind of matter most. And Grabiel, the sophomore slump, I think that also, what I just said, kind of resonates with your answer a lot too. You know, C.J. Stroud is struggling right now. Will they go to the playoffs? Yes, but it's not going to be. They're not going to be going into the playoffs with a crazy-looking record. You'll get the 2 with this one. Colin, the 1. Still all great answers, and I think the common theme is, you know, how well are they playing and how well are they playing with injuries. The NBA Cup is here, and teams are squaring off in an in-season tournament to give us an early preview of who will truly be ready to play come playoff time in the spring. Last year, the Los Angeles Lakers, shout out Aaron Vila, won when they were initially ranked the 7th best team in the West. Going off that, this tournament is perfect for teams who are great in the regular season, but just not good enough to win the finals. Which team do you have taking the NBA Cup this year, and why, Ikey?
Yeah, you said it in the question, perfect for teams that won't win the NBA Finals. But, I mean, they're sponsored by Emirates. It's the Emirates NBA Cup. I mean, the whole thing is a money grab. They're just trying to get fans. No, they're trying to get fans to play the game and really tune in to who's going to win the preseason tournament, essentially. So I'll play the game. I'll play the game with them, with all the other NBA fans in here. The Cavaliers are 12-0. They're 12-0 right now. Their coach is doing a good job of mixing up their lineups and giving them different looks and winning ball games. So I'm going with the Cleveland Cavaliers are taking the Emirates sponsored championship back to Cleveland.
So this is what. So you're going with the Cavs. This has nothing. This has nothing to do with how you'll be scored. This follow-up question. But are the Cavs? Will they win the finals too, though?
I'm doubling down. They'll win.
All right, breaking the trend that I'm kind of feeling right here. You know, good enough to win the cup, not good enough to win the finals. I like that. Grabiel.
I'm gonna have to say I think the Boston Celtics are probably gonna win it. They just narrowly lost to the Atlanta Hawks, but Boston has looked like one of the most complete teams in the association as of right now. Did they handle it? They won the finals last year. I mean, I wasn't watching it. Who cares? I'm not watching this NBA Cup either. I think that the Celtics are probably going to be the ones to lift up the trophy at the end. They'll be the first, probably the first team to win the NBA Cup and win the NBA Finals later in the season because they're just that legit. And the Boston Celtics. That's all I got to say.
Boston Celtics. Colin?
Yeah, I'm not going to give you a double down. I think that the Warriors are going to win this NBA Cup because they are a team that can win any given game. They have some old stars on their team, which doesn't really brood well for 7-game series, especially not 4 of them in the NBA, or 3 of them, or however many it is in the NBA playoffs. But I think that Steph Curry and the cast around him is good enough to win any game that they're playing against any given opponent. But I don't know if they can sustain that for a 7-game series. That's why I think they're going to do well in this sham cup that is the NBA midseason tournament.
Let me ask you this. The NBA Cup, once you get to the playoff stage, it is single elimination, yes? Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. There you go. So, because it's single elimination, it's not a game of 7 series. Teams are going to play differently. Colin, I have to give you on the 3 on this one because as good as the Cavs are, they're playing in a group stage right now. And I do think that they're going to eventually face a tough team later down the line where they may, lose a 2-point, 3-point game in the semifinals. But the Cavs, are they finals potential? Heck yeah, they are. So, Colin, you get the 3, Ikey the 2, Grabiel the 1. Those are some great answers all around from our professional sports round. A little bit of college in the beginning. Now we got some professional round. Y'all know what's next. It's rapid fire. Come back in just a second because we've got rapid fire coming up. Double the points, double the pressure. It's about to get hot.
Yeah.
There we go. There we go. Welcome back into College Crossfire. We now enter our 3rd and final round of the night, rapid fire. As I said, double the points, double the pressure. Everyone's going to have to think on their feet here and come up with what they think is the best possible answer. Y'all don't know the questions yet, but y'all will have to think of how y'all can take home the crown. It's still anyone's game. First off, with the NBA Cup underway, it's really exciting to see one of the newest developments in sports play out in full effect. In other sports, some people have speculated what it would be like for leagues to make their own mid-season event. In racing, it may be cool to see F1 and NASCAR somehow find an equal ground and have a race to prove which style is better. Or in tennis, we've seen Nadal and Federer duel on the battle of the surfaces, clay versus grass. Which new mid-season event needs to happen in sports and why? Anyone can start out with this one.
Yeah, as far as like tournament season tournament-style mid-season tournaments, I'm going to go with the UFC. Like, you know how UFC 1 and 2 were just tournaments between these dudes from completely different parts of the earth, like completely different fighting styles, and I think it'd be pretty entertaining if the UFC just took, like, a month aside and had a tournament fighting style that night. I think that'd be pretty hard to beat, so, yeah.
Tournament-style fighting. Interesting. Colin?
I don't know. It's tough. I think I'm gonna go with volleyball, hard court versus beach. I think that I'm not sure if the dimensions are the same, but I think like a 2v2 or 3v3 type tournament in volleyball, where you have one side playing in the sand and the other side playing on hard court, just to like, you know, maybe you could take the players from the national teams from each of them, put them against each other. I think that would be really cool to see.
So would you kind of have like a divider down at the very bottom to make sure the sand doesn't get onto the hard court?
Probably have to, yeah.
Gotcha. And will this be played inside or outside?
I think outside. I think that would be a lot better.
Nice, nice.
I think I'm going to go a little bit different here. I'm going to go with a mid-season baseball versus softball tournament. Let's try to get like kind of like the World Baseball Classic, a lot of national teams, but they're going to be playing against softball teams as well. See what kind of like the dynamic is between the different sports, and I'm sure there's a way to figure out how to put a softball field and a baseball field on the same diamond, and I think it would be pretty interesting to see how the game would play out.
So would this be co-ed, or would this be like you know, say a male baseball team going on to play like via softball rules, and like a softball team going on to play with baseball rules? How would this work?
Like a baseball team playing baseball rules, but the softball team's playing softball rules on the same field.
Okay, nice. Interesting. It's always cool when, you know, two sports can kind of come together and you know, integrate different skills between two sports to kind of shake up the game a little bit. While football, our next rapid fire question, is still here, we now have the NBA and college hoops going on, so it's safe to say we are really in actual basketball season now. So, coming at y'all with another college hoops question: which school would assemble the best all-time men's college basketball team, and why? Think hard about this one.
I think you kind of have to go with shoot, I don't even really know. I would say Duke. Duke has a lot of good basketball players. I don't pay attention to college basketball enough to like name them. I know Zion was there a couple years back, RJ Barrett. But I know Duke has a long history of producing excellent basketball players, and you know, you could even have them coached by Coach K, who's one of the best college coaches in history. So I'm gonna go with Duke. I think they have a lot of history and the lineage to produce a great all-time starting five.
Who is the team captain of this all-time Duke team?
Jay Billis.
Not one of the white guys?
There you go, Jay Billis. All right, Colin.
I got to go with Kentucky. I mean, you look at the firepower coming out of that. You got John Wall, you got Anthony Davis. I mean, Anthony Davis's season, and I think it was 2011, was, in my opinion, the greatest season of a power forward in college basketball history. He had more rebounds than, I think, 97% of NCAA D1 teams. What's it called? Or he was averaging, no, more. It was more blocks than 97% of NCAA D1 teams. He was, I think, 3 rebounds ahead of the next guy for rebounds. He was averaging the same amount of points. He'd be the captain on that team. Just think about Kentucky's star power all through the last, I don't know, even the last like 15 years. I think the team you can put together from Kentucky's players would probably be one of the best in history. But if you take it from all the way back, you know, they're blue blood. They've been winning since a long, long time ago. I think you put together a team of all the best Kentucky players, I don't think anyone can match that.
I mean, there's even some players that you forgot to mention in there, like Devin Booker and Carl. You said Carl Anthony Towns.
I said Anthony Davis, but Cal would be the center.
Cal would be the center. Ikey?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Houston Cougars.
Okay.
About 3 hours away from Austin. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar at the center, holding it down.
And
Jamal Shed.
yeah,
You got your legendary big man.
Who am I mixing up?
Hakeem.
Hakeem Abdul-Jabbar. Hakeem Olajuwon.
The dream, Mikey.
Kareem played at UCLA.
Causing me pain here.
Okay, well, the big man combined with Jamal Shed at point guard would be pretty hard to beat. Colin was trying to get me to cuss before, so I did it. You're welcome, Tyler. But that's my I'll go with that. Actually, give me Wilt Chamberlain at Kansas. He played at Kansas, didn't he? Right? Yeah, I'm going to Kansas. Wilt Chamberlain at the center. 100 points in the game. Y'all aren't stopping his. So yeah.
Wilt Chamberlain, a dynamic duo that would have been with Andrew Wiggins, a trio with Mario Chalmers, perhaps. All right, great answers all around. I would love to see a tournament between all three of those teams. And our final question of the night. This Longhorns starting quarterback has pulled out quite the array of celebrations as he's led the Longhorns to an 8-1 record. We've come from TikTok and other platforms to see all these dances that he's brought to the gridiron. So, you walk into Kyle Field in 2 weeks against a raging Aggie crowd. The pressure is on. You step under center, hike the snap, do your 5-step drop back, and release a 30-yard dime in the beginning of the game to silence the maroon crowd. Which celebration are you immediately hitting, and let's see it?
Let them know. Let them know you can't hear them. Let them know they're silent. You gotta taunt the fans. You want to get them out of the game first. You know, A&M's biggest advantage is this season has been their home crowd. Take that away, get them silent. I think that's the best way to go. If you take an early lead like these scenarios suggest, you gotta make sure that you're putting the fans down with the team.
Great way to kind of talk back, but also you're not like taunting. Grabiel.
Well, A&M's favorite celebration, favorite hand sign, other than their own thumbs up, is a horns down. So I'm going to say that if I drop a nice dime to the corner of the end zone to Isaiah Bond, I am looking at the student section on the east side, I believe it is, and you do the Jabbar Muhammad box, thumbs down, straight into the student section's face, and you let them know that you're here to play, and that's what I got to say. That's my celebration to silence that Aggie crowd.
Hey, so let me get this straight. This is at the beginning of the game, right?
Beginning of the game, you're super nervous, but you just light up a dime.
Okay.
To ease the nerves.
So if I'm the quarterback going into College Station, they're probably calling me all sorts of explicitives, everything, give me a bunch of stuff, and it's okay. I'm dialed in. That's okay, because I'm Texas. Nothing makes Aggie fans more mad than seeing Longhorns just put the horns up and stare right at them. It's seeing Longhorns being successful. That'll take it. Nothing makes Aggies more mad than that because they can't compete with that. Historically, they haven't been able to compete with that. So if I'm Ikey Kohler there, throw a big touchdown pass, I'm staring them down and I'm just putting the horns up because it's the beginning of the game too. If it's the beginning of the game, if I try to do something too much, my mind's going to get too involved in it. It may affect my play later. So I'm not going to flip them off or anything. End of the game, maybe that, but I'm just going with the hook 'em horns right there.
So some subtle gestures here. It's interesting because I remember being asked a similar question 2 years ago by Tommy Yarish, and me and my two fellow contestants. Tommy had us up doing all these dances, like doing the gritty, getting up out of our chair, and here the three of y'all are able to get away with just doing some simple gesture.
Culture's changed.
Aggies hate this, man. They hate it.
Yeah, culture's changed. We don't gotta get up in their face. We just gotta let them know that we are who we are. They are who they are.
Flipping them off would hurt the team too.
That is going to wrap things up for tonight. As you all know, there can only be one winner, though. So can we get a drum roll, please? His first win of the year, it's Mr. Colin Flickinger.
Ever.
Wow. Do we have time for FaceTime?
Wow.
We do. Colin?
I don't got much to say. Shout out my sister, who I was on FaceTime with like an hour and a half before this. We weren't even talking about this. We were just talking about Thanksgiving. I want to give a shout out to her. Shout out you, Emma.
Colin, congratulations. And it has been so much fun having the three of y'all on tonight. That's going to wrap things up here at TSTV. Thank you to everyone who makes this show possible, from the contestants to the in-studio personnel, all the people in Master Control, especially our executive producer who works extremely hard, Tyler Moss. And to you, the audience, thanks for tuning in. Remember to watch our other shows 1-0 on Friday to get ready for the Arkansas game in College Press Box on Tuesday. Signing off from the studio, I'm your host, Robert Gonsolin. Have a good night. Woo-hoo!